Bollywood. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So my curiosity, grew like that.
Well, that was quite a few years ago.
So that is say that he was not speaking with you. Somebody was with you who was translating. Somebody was there who was translating.
Could have been. I'm trying to remember.
Guraya?
I went to visit him on a couple of occasions. I think the first time I visited him, I didn't have anybody who could help translate.
Then who was that fellow? Maybe local people, might be somebody sitting there.
Trying to remember. There were a couple of graduate students at Punjab University who were helping me, do translation. I had Punjabi tutors. But when I first met him, I remember, I think it was by myself, the first meeting. And then I arranged to meet him again, and I came back with a translator.
You met him again and again.
Yeah, I met him on several occasions. But the very first time, I don't think I had a translator because I didn't know whether he was alive or not. And the famous name.
It was in the 80s.
I found this in the, when I went there, it was in 1971. 71, that's quite a few years ago. You realize how long ago that is?
So when did you get the copy of other report?
Oh, from Mangaram Jaspur. Oh, from Sadam report?
You got it from Harla Bali. Because he told me that I gave him the other report's copy.
Right.
Is it true?
Yeah, that was from Mangaram.
So, Mangaram.
Yeah. Now, some of the material I got from Mangaram Jaspal, who was living in Marble Town.
So Mangaram gave you some photographs also?
Yes.
The other movement?
Yes. So some of those
The
original
poster
things,
of the...
all of those things I got from Mangaram himself, But I remember the first time I met him was because the first time I met him, I was by myself because I didn't know whether...
So that means Chatur Sen, his eldest son, was not there at the first meeting. He might be there at the second meeting when somebody was there. He was not there at the first meeting. His son.
I don't think so. The way I remember it, because this is how many years? It's 40
plus 40 plus
45 years. It's a long time. It's 45 years ago. My memory is the first time I didn't. I just found his name at Berkeley when I was a graduate student at Berkeley. It was in the census reports, I think, and then the census reports about the Antar movement, and then I went to Jalandhar, and then I started talking with people, and they said, Mangaram, I think, is still around, and they told me about the farm in Garshankar. So I said, I'll have to go meet him. So I took a bus, went to Garshankar, and then I had to ask around to find out where his farm was. I didn't know, and finally it was pointed out. I remember it was like late in the afternoon. And I came upon him and came upon the place, and he was sitting on a charpoy smoking a hookah. Right. And I remember, this is the way I remember it. Maybe it's because I've told the story many times and it's become more true than reality. It sometimes happens. But I remember coming up to him, he was by himself, sitting on the charpoy smoking a hookah. And I came up and the best Punjabi. I didn't speak Punjabi very well, but as good as I could, I tried to explain to him who I was, that I was, a graduate student from California, and I was there because I was interested in his leadership in the Antar movement. He was a very well and respected man. I tried to give him respect and honor for, the kind of leadership he had given, and so I was hoping he understood my Punjabi. So he stopped and he looked up at me for a second, and then he spoke in English. He said, California. He said, I used to live in Fresno. And Fresno, of course, is a town in California. People who live in California, Fresno is just a rural town in the middle of the Central Valley. But of course, he had, and then of course, went into found the whole story about his background in California.
So at that time, it was quite famous that Mangaram was a great leader at that time before You meet him.
Well, the farm, as I remember, was given to him by the Indian government because he was regarded as a patriot, as a part of his efforts in the nationalist movement. Being part of the Ghadar Party was a part of the nationalist, the first militant movement in the nationalist movement. So he was, I think, given that land as a patriot, as a gift of the Indian government at the time of independence. So he was a known person in the area.
In the area, a known person.
Yeah, sure.
So you decided to work on the other movement before meeting him, or already?
Before meeting him.
Working on the other movement.
Yeah, it was just by sheer happenstance. I was a graduate student trying to looking for a thesis topic. That's what graduate students do. And I was very interested in the relationship of religion and politics.
Oh, great.
And in the United States at the time, this is back in the early 1970s. At that time, there was a movement of the Black Muslim movement had begun in the United States, where religion was a form of a way of mobilization and to give political leverage for the African American people in the United States. And I was very interested in this movement, and I was wondering if there was an analogy in some way in India, a similar kind of way in which religion was related to attempt to try to mobilize people politically.
Social mobility.
Yeah, social mobility. And so I was going through some old census reports, I think, and then there was just a paragraph about called the revolt of the untouchables, right, in the census, and I said, this is interesting. And then it told about the Adar movement, and I said, well, this is really interesting.
Because by that time, not a single article was available in other movement when you started working.
No,
nothing was available.
Nothing. The only thing written was just this paragraph. Actually, to tell you the truth, that was another attraction to me, because I, as a research scholar, I like interviewing people, talking to people. And the fact there was nothing written made it easier. That means I didn't have to go to the library. There was nothing to go to read. So instead I had to go out and talk to people. So I found that very appealing. Just the idea that I would be able to try to...
That you don't just to go to any chai wala shop, take tea and talk to people.
Then talk to people, that's fun. That sounded like it would be a fun thing to do, as opposed to going to the library and reading all these books, or doing data collection and going to, trying to sift through all these mounds of data.
How old you were at that time?
Well, let's see, I was...
Late 20s?
Yeah, just early 30s. It was 30 years old.
Great.
So it was, for me, it was a lot of fun. So, and it was also an adventure, because every thesis, and this is my advice to graduate students, it should be like a detective story or like a gold miner. You're trying to find hidden gold, and you don't know what's going to be in it.
It was mind-blowing, unimagining the work you did for that moment.
Well, that's wonderful. For me, it was I enjoyed every minute of it, because it was discovery. And trying to piece together a picture.
You look like a social anthropologist and a political scientist in that book.
Yes, I suppose so.
And the way you met Sant Sarvambas.
Yes.
The way you met the Adharmi people there.
Yes.
The way you tried to understand the Radha Swamis.
Yes, right.
Did you meet Sant Charan Singh also?
Well, then I ended up later writing a book about the Radha Swamis.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So the first study of the Radha Swamis came as a part of the Adar movement. And then I was trying to, once I uncovered material about the Adar movement, I thought it would be interesting to compare it with other forms of social mobility, like the Ambedkar movement. And then, of course, Lord Rambali was very useful for that. He's a wonderful person. You knew him.
Yeah, because I took him to Lahore also with me. The Lahore University invited me to give a lecture on Ambedkar.
Nice.
So I told him he's a great scholar. Why not I can take him? They said, okay, you can bring him. So we went together to Lahore together.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful.
So I spent 3 nights with him in the same room.
Oh, excellent.
Talking to him, and he gave me a lot of material.
Great respect for him. He was really a very...
I'll convey your feelings to him.
Oh, yes. Wonderful fellow. I remember, working in these tiny little office that he had.
In Abadpura.
Yeah.
Bhutamandi.
In Bhutamandi, right.
So how many times you visited Ballan, Dera Ballan?
Madeira Ballan? First time I went there was with Mahay, you know, in the back of his motor scooter.
Surendra Mehe.
Yeah, Surrender Mahay, yeah. It's been a couple times to that. Is it, you've done some work on that. Have they developed that? Is it still the same as it was?
It has become, they have transformed it to Torrent.
Oh, really?
It looks like a Makkah of Dalit now.
Really?
I don't like the word Makkah of Dalit.
Yeah.
So they are doing a lot of work on there. A major, huge mammoth hospital has come up.
Wow.
A new hospital, which you have documented in the book.
Yes.
Now a eye hospital has come up.
I see.
There is one guy who gave 1 crore, 1 lakh, 1,000, 100 and 1 rupee for that. He entire his saving, life saving, Jassal, he gave to the Ballandira.
I see.
And another guy, he gave them the 3 canals of land. So they break up like that. So now they have a pillarless hall which can accommodate around 1,000 people. So all air conditioned, center air conditioned.
Oh, beautiful. Huh?
Please come sometime.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes, I'd love to.
Please come.
Right.
Because you see the things that change here.
Yeah.
And people are believing you. You know, in Punjab, people believe you. Believe me. People consider you Messiah. Because you are the one who did work for them.
Well, that's very
After
nice.
that, I got everything. Because I'm just harvesting the crop you sown it.
Well, how nice.
So I got published in Modern Aviation Study, General Aviation Study.
Yes, right.
Because your work, no?
Yeah.
So for me, coming here is a pilgrimage.
Oh, how
to meet
nice.
to you.
Very good. I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear
sure.
that.
So like that.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't meet you. You know, I've come to India from time to time, but usually
So I want to give you a
briefly.
Soropa.
Oh,
It's a Punjabi tradition.